So in this video, we are going to talk about a new offering from or a new service from Amazon. We call it as a DynamoDB. If you have played with any of the NoSQL databases like Cassandra or MongoDB, this DynamoDB is no different from that. So, and I hope you know the full form of NoSQL. It appears to be, I don't want any SQL, but it is not only SQL, and it is a non-relational database. So what does a non-relational database means? Because there is no relationship between the table, just like we have in RDBMS. There is no parent-child or a foreign key or anything like that in here, and there are no tables. This is just schemaless. That's what we call NoSQL databases, and they are distributed. They can scale up to a massive lengths. They can have many clusters, and they can be a partitioned. um, I mean, a lot of things that is not possible with relational databases are possible with NoSQL databases. Some of the common NoSQL databases that I hope you already be aware is depicted here: Cassandra, Mongo, Raven, Coach, HBase, and DynamoDB that we are discussing here. And the most popular as of now is RavenDB, which is the top ranking in NoSQL databases. I haven't worked with RavenDB or CoachDB for that matter. I have worked with the Mongo, Cassandra, and HBase, which comes as part of the Hadoop offering. So what exactly NoSQL? They don't support join. So because there is no relationships, then we cannot join any of these. We call it as items. We will come to see that later. And all the data that is required for a query is present in a single row. So because there are no joins here, if you need to fetch a data for example a user, if a user have an address, if a user has an employment in relational databases, of course they were put into a different table, so with some relationships. But in here that is not the case. All the data will go to a single row, or we call it as an item. We will come to that. And these dbs scales horizontally, not vertically. Vertically means definitely we are adding some hardware, but here these NoSQL databases can scale horizontally. That means we can add as many servers or as many nodes as you want to scale our application. So it is fully managed. So what is DynamoDB then? Just like we have talked about EC2 and the RDS, this is fully managed by Amazon, and it is highly available with their application across three availability zones by default, and it is massively scalable. I'm talking about the peculiarities or the functionalities of DynamoDB offering by Amazon. Supports millions of records per second, which is very fast and consistent in performance. That means, of course, the time to retrieve a record or a list of records is very low, and it is serverless. Till now we have been talking about databases and EC2 and yeah, these two. We had to manage a server, or we didn't manage. At least we had to manage a server in the EC2 case. But in the case of RDS, there was a server, even though it was managed by Amazon. But in the DynamoDB case, there is no server. There is a server, but it is managed in no, in the back by Amazon. So we are not concerned about whether there is a server or not. So that's what we call it as serverless. We just directly create the DynamoDB um, database, and then start creating um, items there, or a table. We call there a table, and then put items there. But don't get confused with the table that we choose in RDBMS. So this is serverless, and there is very low cost, and with a lot of auto scaling capabilities. So this is what DynamoDB brings to the table. So, so DynamoDB is made of tables, and each table has a primary key. And of course, you need to decide what is the primary key, what is the type of that primary key when you create that particular table. And the table can have infinite number of items. You can relate it to the rows in a RDBMS. So we call them as items. You call can whatever. Just need to understand that these are we call in DynamoDB terms as items. And just like we have a column and the corresponding value, the item will have attributes. You can think of it as a map or a JSON object where there is a key and then there is a corresponding value and can be added over time. So this is one of the good things about any NoSQL databases. There is no strict defined schema. If you remember in RDBMS, we had to create the table and specify the columns that go into that particular table. And once we have defined that particular table, there is no going back. Or we need to alter the table and it should be reflected. But in this, there is no restrictions of schema. You can add rows, I mean, we can add attributes into the table when and where we like. And some tables, some items, some attributes may be null. These things are all possible with DynamoDB. And the maximum size of an item is 400 KB. So usually it is textual data that we are going to put into each of these items, and each item, yeah, so has attributes, and each item can have up to 400 KB. That means massive amount of data can be put into each of these items. And then what are the data types that are supported by DynamoDB? These are some of the data types that we will use when creating an table and the corresponding items: string, number, binary. These are scalar data types. And this is the list map. We call it as a document data type. And then there is a set. So you can relate to these data into to the data structures available in Java 2. There is a set, and there are specific data type sets like a string set, number set, binary set, and all the stuff. Just a small discussion on what DynamoDB is. We will go to the hands-on in the next video. So bye for now.